My name is Annie Ward, and I'm 30 years old. I'm an interior designer, not the kind you see on magazine covers with million-dollar clients and celebrity homes. I run my own small studio, designing spaces for people who want their homes to feel like themselves. I sketch, I plan, I source materials. I spend hours making sure every detail fits together like it belongs. It's not just decorating, it's building something from nothing, just like any other business. And I built mine alone. Late nights, tight budgets, clients who changed their minds halfway through projects. I handled all of it. I learned how to sell my vision, how to manage contracts, how to turn empty rooms into something people actually feel when they walk in. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. And for a long time, I thought Gary respected that. Gary worked in corporate marketing. Everything about him was polished. The way he dressed, the way he spoke, even the way he paused before answering questions, like he was always calculating the best possible version of himself to present. When we first met, I thought we balanced each other. He used to tell me, "I love how creative you are," or, "You see things differently. It's refreshing." I remember one night, early in our relationship, when I showed him a project I'd just finished. A small apartment I'd completely transformed. I was excited, walking him through every decision, every texture, every color choice. He smiled. "That's really nice," he said. "You've got a good eye." At the time, that felt like praise. Now, I realize it was the kind of compliment you give someone when you don't fully understand what they do. Or worse, when you don't think it's that serious. Looking back, the signs were always there. Small, subtle, easy to ignore if you wanted to believe everything was fine. Like the night we talked about the future. We were sitting on his balcony, the city glowing beneath us. I told him I wanted to expand. Maybe open a proper studio space, hire a small team, take on larger contracts. He leaned back, studying me with that half smile. "That's cute," he said. "You'd have your own little design studio." Little. I laughed. Of course I did, because calling it out would have made things awkward. And at that point, I still believed in us, more than I believed in my own discomfort. So I laughed, and told myself it didn't mean anything. But it did. It always does. Gary loved talking about his work, campaigns, clients, pressure, competition. I listened to all of it. I asked questions, even when I didn't fully understand half the jargon. I showed up to his world, made space for it, respected it. But when it came to mine, he never really asked. Not about the clients who trusted me with their homes. Not about the stress of managing multiple projects at once. Not about the nights I stayed up reworking designs because something felt off and I couldn't ignore it. To him, it was just design stuff. Still, I told myself it didn't matter. That love didn't have to look the same from both sides. That maybe I was just being too sensitive. Then Gary got promoted. And everything changed. At first, I was proud of him. I remember hugging him in the kitchen, both of us laughing, his excitement spilling over into mine. "You earned this," I told him. And he smiled. But something about that smile felt different, sharper. Like he had just stepped into a version of himself that didn't quite include me anymore. After that, his world expanded. Fast. Networking events, corporate dinners, new colleagues he talked about constantly. "This guy? Rising star. She's a powerhouse. You wouldn't believe the level I'm operating at now." At first, I admired it. Then I noticed something. He stopped mentioning me, stopped including me in conversations about his life. Like I didn't quite fit into the picture anymore. One night, I finally asked, "Do your coworkers know about me?" He barely looked up from his phone. "I mean, not really. You're not part of that world, Annie. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal." I nodded. But something inside me tightened. Because if I wasn't part of his world, then what was I? A few weeks later, he told me about the company holiday party. "It's important you come," he said, adjusting his cufflinks in the mirror. "You should see what my world is like." My world. The way he said it made it sound like a place I was visiting, not somewhere I belonged. Still, I said yes, because that's what you do when you love someone. You show up, even when you already feel out of place. The night of the party, I stood in front of the mirror longer than I should have. The dress felt too polished, too curated, like I was trying to design myself into someone who would fit into his world. Behind me, Gary looked perfect, effortless. Of course he did. When we arrived, the difference between us became impossible to ignore. The venue was stunning. Soft lighting, expensive decor, people moving like they'd been trained for this their entire lives. And me? I felt like a sketch that hadn't been finished yet. Gary, on the other hand, stepped into that space like it belonged to him, laughing, shaking hands, owning every moment. At first, he stayed close. "This is Annie," he'd say, smiling. And for a second, it felt normal. Then came the rest. "She's an interior designer. Makes things look nice at home." They laughed. I smiled. It was fine. Right? The next introduction. "She does like home styling and stuff. She's got a good eye." More laughter. Something in my chest shifted. By the fifth time, I already knew what was coming before he said it. "My personal decorator. She makes spaces pretty. She's into design things. Each version smaller, each word softer. Like he was sanding down everything I had built until it fit neatly into something harmless, something unimportant. I told myself he didn't mean it, that he was just trying to be relatable, that I was overthinking. But then it happened. One of his co-workers, sharp suit, confident smile, the kind of man who measured people in seconds, turned to me and asked, "So, Annie, what kind of projects do you usually work on?" Finally, a chance to speak for myself. I opened my mouth. But Gary answered first. "Oh, she's amazing at making places look cute," he said, laughing lightly. "Basically my little decorator at home." Little. Decorator. Cute. The words hit differently this time. Not because they were loud, but because they were casual, effortless. Like that's all I was to him. The group laughed. And this time, I didn't. I just stood there, smiling enough to survive the moment, while something inside me quietly, finally, broke. Because in that moment, I understood something I had been avoiding for a long time. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't nerves. This wasn't him trying to fit in. This was the truth. This was how Gary saw me. And tonight, he wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I wish I could say it stopped there. That maybe I misread the situation. That maybe Gary realized what he was doing and corrected himself. But it didn't. It got worse. Every new introduction felt like a slow erosion of who I was. We moved from one group to another, and each time, Gary found a new way to shrink me. "This is Annie. She makes spaces look pretty. She's got a great eye for colors and pillows. She's not in corporate, obviously. She's more on the creative side." More on the creative side. The way he said it made it sound like a polite way of saying, "not serious." And every time people laughed, nodded, or gave me that polite, dismissive smile, I felt it. That quiet judgment. That unspoken ranking. Like I had already been placed somewhere. Lower. At first, I tried to play along. I smiled. I nodded. I even added a comment here and there, trying to steer the conversation back towards something real. "I actually run my own studio," I said at one point, keeping my tone light. "I handle full renovations sometimes." "Oh yeah," Gary cut in quickly, waving his hand like he was wrapping up a story. "She's being modest. She just likes making things look nice." Just. That word again. Like everything I had built could be summed up in something decorative, optional, replaceable. I felt my chest tighten, but I stayed quiet. Because making a scene in a room like that would have been worse. At least, that's what I told myself. The room kept moving. Conversations overlapped. Laughter bounced off glass walls and expensive furniture. And Gary, he was thriving. He moved through the crowd like he belonged there. Like this was the version of him that mattered. Not the one who sat with me on the couch. Not the one who said he loved how real I was. This one. The one who needed me to be smaller so he could be bigger. I didn't realize how far it would go. Until the toast. Someone clinked a glass. The room quieted. Gary stepped forward. Of course he did. He looked confident, relaxed, like this was exactly where he was meant to be. I stood a little further back, arms crossed lightly, trying to disappear into the background. Just get through this, I told myself. Smile. Leave. It'll be over soon. Gary started speaking. He thanked his team, talked about growth, about success, about how proud he was to be part of something so dynamic. People nodded, smiled, listened. I barely heard any of it. And I also want to give a special shout out. Something in his tone made my stomach drop. To my girlfriend Annie. The room shifted, heads turned, eyes landed on me. For a split second, something inside me hoped. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was where he fixed it. Maybe this was where he said something real. Something that made all of this make sense. I looked up at him, and he smiled. Not at me. At them. She's not exactly in this world, he said lightly, a chuckle already building in his voice. But if any of you need help picking throw pillows or making your place look Instagram ready. He paused, grinning. She's your girl. The room erupted. Laughter, loud, immediate, effortless. Like that was the funniest thing they'd heard all night. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because in that moment, it wasn't just embarrassment. It was clarity. He didn't respect me. Not a little. Not secretly. Not in his own way. Not at all. I could feel the heat rising to my face. My hands went cold. My chest tightened like I couldn't get enough air. I looked around. People were still laughing. Some glanced at me. Not cruelly, not even intentionally, but with that same look. That look that said, oh, that's who she is. Not a business owner. Not someone who built something from nothing. Just a cute little detail in Gary's life. Something soft. Something insignificant. I swallowed hard. Tried to keep my expression neutral. But inside, something was breaking apart, piece by piece. I didn't wait for the laughter to die down. I didn't wait for him to look at me. Because I already knew. He wouldn't. I turned. Quietly. And walked out. The hallway outside was cold. Empty. Silent in a way that felt almost unreal after everything inside. The door closed behind me, muffling the laughter, but not enough. I could still hear it. Echoing. Repeating. Like it had carved itself into my head. I leaned against the wall, my hands shaking slightly. Get it together, I whispered to myself. But the words felt hollow. Because this wasn't just about one moment. It wasn't just about one joke. It was everything. Every comment I ignored. Every laugh I forced. Every time I told myself it didn't matter. It all led here. To this. I closed my eyes, replaying his words. She's not exactly in this world. Making places look nice. My little decorator. Each one hit harder now, because I finally understood what they meant. This wasn't how he acted under pressure. This wasn't him trying to fit in. This was him. Unfiltered. A few minutes later, I heard the door open behind me. Footsteps. Familiar. Gary. There you are, he said lightly, like nothing had happened. Why'd you sneak out? I turned slowly, looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in 4 years, I didn't recognize the man standing in front of me. Do you have any idea what you just did? I asked quietly. He blinked. What are you talking about? I let out a short, disbelieving breath. The toast, Gary, I said, my voice tightening. You turned me into a joke. Again. In front of everyone. He rolled his eyes. Actually rolled his eyes. Oh my God, Annie, it was just a joke. Just a joke. The words landed exactly where I expected them to. But this time, I didn't swallow them. I didn't laugh. I didn't let it go. Something inside me had shifted. And I knew. This wasn't something I could ignore anymore. For a second, I just stared at him, waiting for something, anything, that sounded like regret. It never came. Gary sighed, like I was exhausting him. Annie, seriously, he said, running a hand through his hair. You're overreacting. Everyone thought it was funny. Of course they did, I replied, my voice steady now. Too steady. Because they don't know me. All they know is what you told them. He scoffed. Come on. Don't make this into something it's not. I felt something inside me snap into place. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just final. It's already something, I said. You made sure of that. He crossed his arms, irritation flashing across his face. I don't get why you're being so sensitive about this. It's not like I said anything untrue. You design spaces, Annie. It's not exactly... He stopped himself. Too late. Not exactly what? I asked quietly. He hesitated for half a second, then shrugged. Not exactly impressive compared to what people here do. There it was, not hidden, not softened, not dressed up as a joke, just the truth. And somehow, hearing it said out loud didn't hurt as much as I thought it would, because I had already felt it, for months, maybe longer. I nodded slowly. Wow, I said. So that's how you see me? He rolled his eyes again. You're twisting my words. No, I replied. I'm finally hearing them. Silence stretched between us. Cold. Uncomfortable. Real. I took a breath. And in that moment, I understood something with absolute clarity. This wasn't about the party. This wasn't about the toast. This was about us. About the way he had been shrinking me, piece by piece, until I barely recognized myself anymore. And I was done letting it happen. I can't do this anymore, Gary. The words came out calm, clean, like they had been waiting for the right moment. He blinked. What? I'm done, I said, meeting his eyes. With this. With you. For a second, he just stared at me. Then he laughed. A short, disbelieving laugh. You're kidding, right? You're going to throw away 4 years over a joke? It's not the joke, I said firmly. It's what the joke revealed. His expression hardened. You're being ridiculous. Am I? I stepped closer, my voice still controlled. Because from where I'm standing, you've spent the entire night showing me exactly how little you respect me. That's not true. Then what is? I asked. Because every introduction, every comment, every laugh, none of that looked like respect, Gary. He clenched his jaw. You're making a scene. I let out a soft breath. No, I said. You made the scene. I'm just responding to it. That hit him. I saw it in the way his posture shifted slightly, the way his eyes flickered toward the door behind me, toward the room full of people still inside, watching, listening, judging. Can we just talk about this later? He said, lowering his voice. You're embarrassing me. I almost laughed. Embarrassing you? I repeated. You stood in front of an entire room and reduced me to a punchline, and now you're worried about being embarrassed? His face flushed. That's not what happened. It is, I said. You just don't like hearing it. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I did something I hadn't planned. Something I didn't even realize I was going to do until my fingers were already moving. I reached up, slipped the ring off my finger, held it out to him. The air between us shifted instantly. Annie. His voice dropped, sharper now. Don't do this. Good luck, I said quietly, placing the ring in his hand. Finding someone you actually respect. His fingers closed around it slowly, like he didn't quite understand what was happening. "You're making a mistake," he said, his tone turning cold. "No one else is going to put up with this attitude." I met his gaze. "Maybe not," I said, "but at least I'll have my self-respect." And just like that, it was over. I turned, walked past him, opened the door, and stepped back inside. The room felt different now, quieter, heavier. Conversations dipped as I walked through, people trying not to stare, and failing. I didn't rush, didn't hide. I walked straight to the coat rack, grabbed my things, and turned back toward the exit. But I didn't make it far. "Annie." His voice cut through the room behind me. I stopped, slowly turned around. Gary was standing there now, a few steps inside the room, eyes sharp, jaw tight. And people were watching. Of course they were. He lowered his voice. "But not enough." "You're really doing this?" he asked. I glanced around briefly, at the faces pretending not to listen, at the people who had laughed earlier. Then I looked back at him. "You already did this," I said calmly. "I'm just finishing it." A murmur moved through the room, small, subtle, but there. Gary's expression cracked. Just for a second, then hardened again. "Fine," he snapped. "Walk away. But don't come back when you realize what you lost." I tilted my head slightly. "What did I lose, Gary?" I asked. "Someone who thinks I'm beneath him?" He didn't answer, because he couldn't. I held his gaze for one more second, then turned, and walked out. For real this time. The days after were messy. Gary texted, called, sent long messages, short messages, angry ones, dismissive ones. "You're overreacting. Can we talk? You're acting like a child." I didn't respond. Not once. Because there was nothing left to say. But he didn't stop there. A few days later, messages started coming in from mutual friends. "She's saying you flipped out over nothing. She told people you couldn't handle a joke. She said you were insecure." Insecure. That word again. It almost made me laugh, because there's nothing insecure about finally seeing the truth. Then came the message that changed everything. It was from one of his coworkers, someone who had been at the party. "Hey, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for laughing that night," she wrote. "I didn't realize how bad it was until after. Gary talks about you like you're something temporary. Like he's settled." I read that message 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I finally did. This wasn't new. This wasn't a one-night mistake. This was who he had been all along. I just hadn't wanted to see it. A month later, I heard the rest. His behavior at the party, the way things escalated. It didn't stay contained. People talked. At work. Behind his back. And eventually, in front of the people who mattered. He didn't get the promotion he was expecting. Some of his colleagues started distancing themselves. Apparently, being charming only works until people see what's underneath. I won't lie. There was a part of me that felt something close to satisfaction, not because I wanted him to fail, but because it meant I wasn't crazy. What I felt that night was real. As for me, I moved on. Really moved on. I threw myself into my work, expanded my studio, took on bigger projects, started building something even stronger than before. But this time, I wasn't doing it to prove anything to anyone else. I was doing it for me. I stopped shrinking myself to fit into someone else's world, stopped apologizing for what I built, stopped questioning my own worth. And for the first time in a long time, I felt right. Looking back now, I don't regret that night. Not the humiliation, not the argument, not even the ending. Because sometimes, the moment that breaks you is the moment that shows you exactly who someone is, and more importantly, who you deserve to be.